TLO, what's poppin'? We are on Twitch. We are live. And by the time you see this, we won't be. So just leave a like, comment, subscribe. Turn on your post notification bells. Let's continue to grow the family from Chicago to the UK. Right behind me, you see it. Tube of you, YouTube. And anybody from the headquarters watching, this is my warning. Please, you know what I'm saying? I do not curse in my videos, and anything that needs to be edited and blurred out, it is. Trust and believe. Or, you know, do your thing. Don't forget, we do got twitch.com, the username's at the bottom of the screen. Lock in with us. We got Patreon, and we got merch. The link to everything is in the description below. This is from Murder Up Close. That's the name of the YouTube channel. I am not subscribed. I am now. And it's called Special Ops Crime Squad UK. Crime documentary. I'm down for it. Talk to me.
Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. No copyright infringement intended. All rights belong to their respective owners.
Police, what's your emergency?
Oh, police officers!
Elite police units, created to crack the toughest of cases.
My role is investigating
What is another
serious
police?
and organised crime.
This was out of the ordinary, and this was a high-pressure situation. Calm yourself down.
Their task, tackle the villains.
Lots of suspicion of murder, all right?
Their methods, clever. Despite stringent firearm laws, in recent years, gun crime and armed robberies have continued to rise. Firearm laws, in recent years, gun crime and
This somebody's house. Why they got a pack of drawers on it? All right.
armed robberies have continued to rise across the UK.
He's made his way round to the shop assistant and held the gun to her and threatened her.
So whilst we were still investigating, a second armed robbery occurred.
The male had squirted the shop assistant with petrol from an isotonic bottle, which was horrific. This is definitely something out of the ordinary.
The motive really for these crimes were...
What did he take?
They need money for their latest fix.
Well, we knew he was a dangerous individual, and we had
The
to
spray from the bottle was something straight out of an episode of Luther.
catch him quick.
Crazy. Good night, CG.
I've been in Gwent Police for approximately 21 years. Wants to be in the police force from a young age. I live in Gwent. It has pockets of crime in certain areas, but on the whole, it's a really nice place to live.
On Friday, March 11th, 2016, police are called by distressed staff of the Spa shop in Caerleon, South Wales. It has been robbed by a man using a gun.
My initial thoughts were, it's Caerleon. Nothing like this ever happens in Caerleon. And the fact that they'd used a firearm, that is not something that we deal with on a regular basis. This is definitely something out of the ordinary.
An armed response team is dispatched to the shop. Once it arrives, they secure the scene. DI Jodie Warren is one of the first officers to talk to traumatized
DI, Detective Inspector.
staff.
She was obviously terrified, still in shock as to what had happened. So I conducted an initial account with her. And again, then tried to establish all of the facts about what had happened so that we could identify the person responsible.
Hey, somebody should make one of those little cool digital photos of me. Like right here. Hold on. Let me give it to you. Hold on. Hold on, wait. There you go. Right there. That's hard.
Responsible as quickly as possible, and take them off the streets.
While detectives interview witnesses, police begin
Is that what it's called?
looking for
Vector art?
clues.
As an investigator, obviously you want to identify any areas that suspect has touched. That interaction
There you
with the
go,
suspect
right
was really
here.
limited. So they didn't leave anything behind. And they didn't
With
appear
the strings
to touch a
and
lot
everything.
because they forced the members of staff to do it for them.
With forensics looking limited, officers rely on the shop CCTV.
The CCTV originally captures the offender coming across the forecourt of the petrol station. His face is covered. He's wearing quite a distinctive jacket, though, at that time. It's a green jacket with an orange lining in the hood.
He's made his way round to the shop assistant and held the gun to her and threatened her. He's then escorted her back through the shop into the small office at the back where he's demanded money, and there were 2 other shop assistants within the office.
The armed robber then made off with £800 in cash.
All that for 800, huh?
Almost half of all robberies in the UK are committed by heroin and crack cocaine addicts. The fact that a dangerous gun-toting criminal was on the loose in South Wales is big news. Ewan Davies of the South Wales Argus is there to cover it.
There was a lot of excitement in the newsroom. These kind of robberies are
for
quite
real?
rare, so yeah, I think people were shaken up and
That'd be
scared.
heat.
Given the seriousness of the crime, police launch Operation Vincent.
So we had detectives who were visiting local premises with a view to identifying vehicles and people that were in the area at the time. We've also put into place high visibility patrols and just to get that reassurance to the public.
I think the local community were just hoping that the police could make some kind of breakthrough.
The first 48 hours of the investigation, police are really struggling.
It is very frustrating when you haven't got
Kind of reminds me of 24 hours in police custody.
a lead, because you're literally turning up stones trying to find something that you can grab hold of.
By March the 14th, detectives turned to the media, desperate for a result.
We released a press release offering the public to help us out if they knew the person.
Detectives are relying heavily on the public appeal bearing fruit.
But that
How would they know that? This is the image I released? The jacket probably is going to give it up. That's too bright of a jacket.
Detectives are relying heavily on the public appeal bearing fruit.
brought no leads, which was really frustrating because we couldn't work out who this person was. We just needed that little bit just to help us try and identify him.
After drawing a blank with the public, police have one last throw of the dice.
Bro, who does...
The CCTV is circulated within the force.
There's that period of uncertainty, I think, where you want to be doing as much as you can to try and identify the suspects. You want to have, that moment in time where something falls into place.
Excuse me.
In a huge stroke of luck, a police officer recognises the suspect due to his jacket.
So they provided us with the name of that individual, which was a real breakthrough for us at this point. Yes, we still have to go and check and test because there could be a coincidence where someone else might have a similar jacket, but it just opened up that line of inquiry for us.
Now, finally, detectives have a possible perpetrator.
Once we had the name of this particular individual, we try then and explore all of the information that's available in relation to this individual.
It turns out the 46-year-old suspect is a known drug addict with an armed robbery conviction from 2005.
Well, you're about to get another one, buddy. You're going to jail.
But before police can locate him, they receive bad news.
So whilst we were...
This is Gwent. How do you say it? Gwinnett? Gwinnett? This police station is insane. This is the station? Or is this a college campus? What is this?
But before police can locate him, they receive bad news.
So whilst we were still investigating whether this suspect was the person that we were looking for, a second armed robbery occurred.
But this time it was in Port Stewart. It was very similar to the one in Caerleon. However, the male had gone into the shop and squirted the shop assistant with petrol from an isotonic bottle, which was horrific, and he demanded money. He then picked up the firearm along with the quantity of cash that he took from her, and he left.
The armed robber got away with another few £100s.
I'm not gonna lie, if I was ever into it with somebody in the United States of America and they sprayed anything on me, I'd be terrified. I'm more afraid of that than having a firearm pulled on me or anything. Like that right there, it's too much uncertainty. Like to go out and possibly deform somebody like that is crazy. That's crazy work.
From our perspective as investigators, that second armed robbery, it was, our worst fears confirmed, really.
Once police arrive at the scene, it's secured and swept for clues, where detectives make an important discovery.
What he did was he placed the petrol, which was in an isotonic drink, onto the ice cream refrigerator whilst he was collecting the money from her. He'd also placed the handgun on a pile of newspapers, but he picked up the handgun along with the money that he had taken from her, but he left the store without collecting the isotonic drink from the freezer.
It's obviously a mistake by
fingerprints
by the suspect. You wouldn't want to leave anything behind. It gave us an opportunity to forensically examine that bottle with a view to putting the suspect in that location.
It was so important that that the forensic analysis was done in a really quick turnaround because we didn't want any further robberies taking place.
Whilst awaiting the forensic results, detectives compare the footage from both robberies.
So the CCTV from the second incident, again, the person's face is covered, the distinctive jacket isn't being worn, but you can see some similarities with regards to, height, weight, body shape, the way that the body moves. It was a good chance that just from observing that CCTV that it was the same male as the first occasion, but obviously we had to prove it.
Officers scour the footage for any clues.
That external CCTV shows a vehicle come into that location, parking in a street opposite the spa, and then the individual responsible for the offence walking from that same direction into the store. And after the incident has occurred, back to where that vehicle was, and that vehicle driving away.
It all suggests to officers the armed robber has an accomplice.
The jig is up, buddy.
Now Gwent police potentially have 2 criminals at large.
Pressure was definitely on Gwent police to get results.
This in Wales.
We knew we had to catch him, and we had to catch him quick.
Gwent police are hunting for a dangerous criminal who has committed 2 armed robberies in the space of 10 days. And they've just discovered he isn't working alone. With only poor quality CCTV to work with, police start searching for the getaway car.
By looking at vehicles, so automatic number plate recognition, checks being undertaken to see what vehicles were travelling in that area at the time.
Unfortunately, the vehicle checks get nowhere, and it isn't long before the news of the second robbery gets out.
Pressure was definitely on Gwent police to get results. There's a dangerous gunman out there. He's terrorising local communities, terrorising shop workers working in London.
So they're going to set up a sting operation? Because this is called special ops, so they're going to run a special op?
The race is on to locate the suspect and identify his accomplice.
Well, we knew he was a dangerous individual because he had previous convictions for similar offences back where he had been convicted of a robbery utilising a firearm. So we knew we had to catch him, and we had to catch him quick.
The day after the second robbery, the forensic results are back from the lab. Despite wearing gloves, the armed robber still managed to leave DNA on the bottle, and it's a match for the prime suspect.
Don't tell me bro actually drunk from the bottle, emptied it, and then left.
The moment that we'd received those forensic results linking our main suspect to that isotonic bottle was a really, really good moment, because we knew that we had evidence linking both robberies, that there's both spas, and he was responsible for them.
Police have
goodbye,
to locate
buddy.
the armed robber before he strikes again.
So we visited any known...
He gonna get like 12 years, ain't he? 12 plus at least. You got a firearm, whether it be replica or not, you still got one.
addresses that he has been previously found at or has links with.
We tried everywhere that we could look. Family addresses, friends' addresses, known associates.
And frustratingly, he wasn't present at any of those locations.
Desperate, they turn to the media for help once more and name the suspect.
I remember the main suspect so well because I'd covered a really notorious case, an armed robbery he'd committed more than 10 years before, where he and an accomplice had burst into their victim's home. He was a man who was well versed in violence and...
He was brazen. Is that the right word? Hey, Siri.
Huh?
What does brazen mean? Bold and without shame. Yeah, he was brazen. I knew that. I was looking it up for y'all confirmation.
Some pretty nasty armed robberies.
The suspect had been sentenced to 11 years for the previous armed robbery. He'd been released after serving half his term and is still on license, but was nowhere to be found.
We're taking real chances.
So over the following days, we then had to expand our search for him. We had to expand the addresses and perhaps people that he was linked to. We had to revisit that. We had to explore other avenues to identify where this suspect was currently residing.
Then, detectives' efforts are rewarded, and they managed to secure intel on the suspect's whereabouts.
So once we'd identified this address for the suspect, a lot of planning goes into place when it comes to executing a warrant, and this particular individual, we believed, had access to a firearm, so you have to choose the right people to exercise that.
You know who to call? Call them police interceptors or whoever. No, it ain't the police. Call a firearm. Lisa.
On the 24th of March, police swoop.
We went to that address and the warrant was executed at that property. The suspect was located inside with a number of other individuals who were arrested.
Officers hunt urgently for the gun.
The main offender, when he was interviewed at the home address, proclaimed that he had no idea of where this firearm was or the location of it, to a degree that he was really confident that we weren't going to find it. So he came across as being very, very sure that there was no firearm at that address.
Once he was removed from the property, everyone else at the property was also spoken to. The property then, again, is locked down and secured, which allows us to go in and examine that scene. We're looking for the distinctive clothing that was worn during the CCTV and the incident itself. We're looking to recover the firearm. We're looking for anything, really, that links that individual or individuals...
I feel like they're going to find it all.
...to these offences.
Unbelievably, the gun is found under the sofa the suspect had been
sitting on.
It's a BB gun. It's sent to the forensics lab, and the arrest is announced to the press.
The first arrest was made 10 days...
Are we not going to tell everybody that it's a BB gun, though? It's a BB gun.
Suspect had been sitting...
Well, I know a fake Glock when I see... This is not a real Glock. No, sir. I would show y'all mine, but I'll show y'all when we get off stream. When we get off this. It's a BB gun, though.
It's sent to the forensics lab, and the arrest is announced to the press.
The first arrest was made 10 days after the first robbery, where they'd caught the days after.
The arrest is sitting on.
This is the one the weapon they found. I get it. I get that what we doing is just editing. Y'all trying to be cinematic. This not even the same one.
It's sent to the forensics lab, and the arrest is announced to the press.
The first arrest was made 10 days after the first robbery, where they'd caught the main suspect. They struck gold, really. They found him in a drug den. The main suspect had a long-standing drug problem. He was heroin user, which I think it ravaged his life.
Oh my God, why would y'all show that? Wasn't even necessary.
As he had breached his license conditions, he goes straight back to prison for the final 6 years of his original sentence.
So it took the pressure off a little bit because we had the safety net of him being returned to prison rather than the possibility of being returned to the community.
But the accomplice is still at large and a potential danger to the public.
So from mobile phone records, we were able to identify our main offender had been in contact with several numbers, one of which was to Europe Car. We were able to do inquiries to ascertain that there was a vehicle booked on the 11th or the 12th of March, and then a second booking later on in March. And both those dates were the same as when the dates for the robbery.
It's a positive result. And when they contact the car hire company, detectives get another break.
We were able to ascertain that voice recording had been obtained, and there were several of them from where he had made bookings for hire vehicles.
Crucially, the name given for the booking wasn't the suspect's. It means they could have the accomplice's identity.
We were able to obtain CCTV from the hire car company, which showed the main suspect in company with the accomplice outside the premises when they were booking the vehicle. A warrant was executed, and there were items found within his home address that linked him to the robbery.
One key item found was a half-empty petrol canister.
So the accomplice was arrested and was taken to custody where he was interviewed.
The accomplice denied being involved. He did say that the hire car that he had hired had mysteriously gone missing from outside his address on one of the evenings that the robbery had occurred. It was very convenient that they'd hired a vehicle which was parked outside his home address. But
he could get away though with that. Y'all could just have not enough evidence.
It wasn't there on the night of the robbery, but yeah, he wasn't driving it and nobody else was driving it, but couldn't tell us actually who was.
The accomplice is quickly charged. Then police take a deeper look into what they've collected.
The suspect's phone was seized during the investigation, which helped provide the links to his involvement and his main accomplice's involvement in relation to the offences.
The jig is up.
The perpetrator's phone is a mine of damning information.
The suspect had sent messages to a friend in relation to how much of a professional he was and that he had a good CV, and that he referred to other members of the criminal fraternity who he could call upon as references that wouldn't actually ask for his help unless he was that good.
The main suspect portrayed himself as a hard man, as a top professional criminal, but in truth, he was anything but. One of the main reasons why the police caught him was because when he committed the second robbery with the petrol in a bottle, he left the bottle at the scene with his DNA all over it.
This dude's a tool. Why would he do any of the other stuff? Like, what are you doing? Bro, you do your criminality in silence. Why are you talking on it? Now you jammed up because of phone records.
Was equally revealing.
The forensic examination showed that the firearm was actually an imitation firearm, so not capable of firing in the same way as a conventional firearm. However, obviously, from a visual perspective, there is no difference.
Because the suspect
You a lie? If somebody pulled this on me, I'm instantly knowing. If I see the side of this, I'm instantly knowing, because this is not here. This is not here. This is not here. The rest is pretty, almost accurate enough to the naked eye. But if I can get a glimpse right here, Oh, these is fake, buddy.
There is no difference.
Because it's
This fake too. This don't look real. This is not. I would know. I'm sorry.
the suspect used it like a real gun, the case is still treated as armed robbery. And there's DNA on the weapon.
And the DNA of our main suspect was found on the trigger point of the firearm, which linked him to possession of that gun. That same gun was the gun that was used in the robbery in Cullinan and in Portskewitt.
It's enough to charge the perpetrator formally. And in March 2018, he and his accomplice are tried at Newport Crown Court.
Despite the quite strong evidence, both the main suspect and the accomplice pleaded not guilty and took it to trial. The main suspect was portrayed by the prosecution as a man with serious drug addiction problems.
After a 2-week trial, the getaway driver is given 6 years, and the suspect gets 13, plus an extra 4 to finish his original sentence.
The sentence that was given in relation to these offences really reflects
Say goodbye, buddy.
And the seriousness.
13 plus 4, the rest of your other original sentence. So what? They probably would they. So because he was on license when this all happened, would he still for the 13 years? Does he still have to serve 80, like half, or are they gonna make him serve the entire thing? At minimum, you serving 10 again. You got a whole 10 to serve minimum, but the rest they might, put you back on license, which is crazy, bro. You were out. You snoozing.
Of what occurred.
It was a shocking crime. It's not something that I had dealt with in my career, whereby somebody had gone in with a firearm to the local shop. And it was horrific what they put the victims through.
It's no
okay, so y'all saying in the chat he would serve it all because of his risk to the public?
The terror of the suspect, South Wales. 5 miles away in Newport, Gwent police investigate a major drug syndicate.
We had over £250,000 worth of cash
and
a box containing 5 kilograms of cocaine.
That's leaving multiple addicts and a broken community in their wake.
Some of their customer base was responsible for converting this cocaine into crack cocaine.
So we knew this was a group that we needed to deal with. We knew we had an organised crime group operating in the Newport area.
The war against drugs is a huge priority for police across the UK.
The controlled drugs were being sold to vulnerable people. That addiction then fuels other crime.
Some of their customer base was responsible for converting this cocaine into crack cocaine.
So we knew this was a group that we needed to deal with.
But taking the gang down isn't going to be easy.
So we knew how the drugs were being distributed. What we didn't know, and our frustration, was where the drugs were coming from.
I've been in the police force for 20 years, and all of that has been with Gwent Police. Newport, it is a city that has that strong sense of community where people will look out for each other. Although it comes with issues like any other city, drug-related crime, drug taking, drug dealing, and shoplifting.
Illegal drugs cost the British taxpayer nearly £20 billion every year in policing, associated crime, and rehabilitation, with drug-related crime in South Wales increasing by more than 10% annually. In late 2017, police received intelligence from some local Newport residents.
The community were giving us information about the drug dealing that was going on. We could see there was a potential crime group network operating, but we needed to build that picture further to fully understand what was happening.
All police know is that a few individuals are controlling the sale of narcotics around town.
The controlled drugs were obviously being sold in the community, being sold to vulnerable people. That addiction then fuels other crime, and also obviously affects people's quality of life. So a really wide impact on that community.
Initially, local police observe from afar until they have enough intel to stop and search a suspected mid-level gang member in March 2018.
This dude on the bike?
We were able to recover mobile phones, drugs, and cash. And it was the information on that mobile phone particularly that gave us the information we needed.
The data suggests this gang could be far larger than first thought. And the investigation is passed to Gwent's organised crime unit, headed by Detective Inspector Matt Clark.
From the information we found on this individual's phone, we were able to identify that they were part of a significant drug supply network. So we structure our investigations around lifestyling of the individuals, understanding what they do on a day-to-day basis, how their associations look, what their financial picture looks like. So we also started, at the time of the investigation, a parallel financial investigation so that we understood the inner workings of their businesses and their financial positions.
The team exploring the seized phone make another worrying discovery.
So we know that our organised crime group was primarily responsible for cocaine supply. However, some of their customer base was responsible for converting this cocaine into crack cocaine. And clearly there are significant issues for a community.
See, when they said some of the customer base before, when they was discussing, they made it sound like the Nitties was doing it. No, this is the plug distributing, and the lower people, or not the lower people, but the people in the neighborhoods, the gang leaders or whatever you want to call them, they turning it, that customer is turning it into, you know what I'm saying, the other one. So that's how I'm going to say it.
That come with the use of such a drug.
Crack cocaine is a cheap, incredibly addictive narcotic. Detectives then begin to identify how the gang operate.
We could see that this organised crime group were not only dealing directly onto the streets, but also supplying in larger amounts to other dealers who were then onwardly supplying in their own right.
After such an alarming escalation, in June 2018, Gwent police launch Operation Divide. And they escalate their covert intelligence gathering.
Our surveillance team is made up of around 20 operatives, gathering evidence against these individuals, whilst working with our partners, such as HMRC, to establish the financial pictures that they were presenting through their business dealings.
It's a major undertaking for Gwent police.
At any point during the investigation, we were looking at up to 20 suspects, all involved in some way in the criminality of that organised crime group, whether as part of the team.
They about to take down the whole organization. This looked like it's not, but it looked like a RICO.
As a customer or someone that was assisting them within the community.
Just the sheer size of the operation that's going on.
Undercover operation is fraught with danger.
This is a group of drug dealers that have significant influence within the community, have eyes and ears on the ground themselves, so you're always watching out for third parties that can pass them information about our actions.
Within weeks, detectives are collecting substantial evidence of the gang's criminality. They have a number of suspects in their sights, but they still haven't identified who's at the top of the chain.
We could see from the data from HMRC that these individuals were earning minimal incomes, yet they were driving around in very expensive vehicles, such as Audis, high-end VWs, Mercedes, and on some occasions renting vehicles like Lamborghinis.
Bit by bit, the surveillance is giving police the information
living above their realistic paper means
they need.
Once we'd identified the mobile telephone numbers that were being used by our organised crime group, we were then able to understand who they were speaking to gain a hypothesis around that kind of connection so that we could plan further evidence gathering opportunities.
This reminds me of a case. This reminds me of an episode of first one was Luther. Now this one is Line of Duty. I keep thinking I'm gonna hear AC-12.
Another important part of the surveillance is using cameras on the streets.
They may not have been under surveillance physically by our team, but they were under surveillance through CCTV means. Being able to put associates together in key places where key events were happening, and also to show their general lifestyles when they weren't expecting to be under surveillance.
A few months in, due to a combination of all their undercover work, the investigation is really progressing.
On a daily basis, we were...
This really be spooky, because when they on to you, you're done.
Seeing new things, identifying new associates, and understanding better how they were working as an organisation, but also how they were laundering their money and how they were purchasing vehicles to be able to move the drugs without it being seen.
Using this intel, in July 2018, police arrest 2 mid-level gang members, and they seize over half a kilo of cocaine, and more importantly, phones which are thoroughly analysed.
So through our phone analysis, we're able to understand the makeup of the organised crime group, with the principal or lead suspect, and then his other individuals and associates who worked underneath him. And we could understand how they...
All of that through the phones, man. They're getting their whole case is based on phones. Through the phones, they were able to open up other avenues of inquiry. People love them phones, man.
The crime group worked. So they would receive their upstream drug supply from another area, but then how they distributed their drugs, so to larger or to some large drug dealers in the local area, some not so large, and then running their own street lines where they were dealing lower amounts to general.
This is not a correct depiction.
Larger or to some large drug dealers in the local area, some not so large.
You're telling me the money launderer is the... No, this is cap. But continue. I guess just for editing purposes.
And then running their own street lines where they were dealing lower amounts to general individuals with substance misuse problems within the Newport area.
Or should we just be looking at... Should we just be looking at this one? This piece is what they... Okay, that makes more sense. But the money launderer normally ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
Lines where they were dealing.
They're not even in this
lower
close.
amounts to general individuals with substance misuse problems within the Newport area.
Allegedly.
But there is a key piece of the puzzle police are missing.
So we knew how the drugs were being distributed. What we didn't know, and our frustration, was where the drugs were coming from. So we held off on any action so that we could understand where the upstream supply was coming from.
Detectives need access to the top-tier gang members' communications, but they've drawn a blank.
The issue we had through the investigation was how were key subjects communicating with each other.
I'll figure it out in 10 minutes, guys.
Gwent police are struggling to identify how a gang selling large amounts of cocaine in the Newport area are communicating, and where they're...
These are all props. None of this is real.
...getting their supply from. Meanwhile, the financial side of the investigation throws a spotlight on a crucial aspect of the criminal operation.
So at this point, we were aware that money was being fed through the local car dealership. There was a very close association between our principal lead suspect in the investigation and also a close friend who run that car dealership. And we could see their movements together.
The gang needs to launder their money to make it look legitimate.
There was a lot of vehicles being purchased. Both our owner of the car garage and our lead suspect would travel together to car auctions, purchasing different cars, multiples at one time, and then selling them through the car sales garage.
Okay, now that list makes sense now.
But not for significant profit, sometimes at a loss, clearly just trying to launder that money to make it clean.
After struggling to find the gang's primary source of drugs, In August 2018, the surveillance team make what they hope is a breakthrough.
We observed what we believe to be a meeting between one of our subjects and an upstream supplier, where a box was exchanged for a heavily laden bin liner. We believe that that bin liner was full of cash and that the box was full of cocaine.
Keen to get more info on the mystery man, officers let the exchange happen.
Having seen or observed this exchange, we made some...
They let all of it fly until you lead them all the way to the top, man.
Far more significant investigation around this unknown individual, his pattern of movements, and his communications with others, so we could establish where in the country he was visiting and how regular and often he was coming to our area.
5 days later, acting on more intelligence, police make an arrest, seizing a number of phones. It sparks a flurry of communication among the gang, resulting in some key information.
And the crazy part is, like, we be thinking these ground level criminals are stupid, but they ain't no better up here.
We established what we believe to be the planning of another meeting between these two individuals.
The meeting is set for the
All of this
23rd
phone
of
stuff
August,
they got
and
going
police
on
are
is
desperately
crazy.
hoping the mystery man is the upstream supplier they've been seeking.
So the surveillance team were fully deployed to make sure that all evidential opportunities were captured to show the associations between these two individuals that we'd already previously captured matched what we were about to see.
That night, it's time for the takedown.
Our team was ready and in position, and when we saw them finally meet and come together and about to exchange the packages, then our roads policing units came into the area, were able to surround them, prevent them from leaving the area, and secure their arrests. The suspects immediately knew that they were in significant trouble and really found themselves in a bit of a pickle.
Once in custody, police searched the two vehicles.
The team were elated. We had over £250,000 worth of cash in the one car and a box containing 5 kilograms of cocaine in the other.
Say goodbye.
To know that we'd secured what we were hoping to secure was a huge nugget for our investigation. That tells us that all of our theories throughout our time investigating over numerous months were right.
Wait a minute. 5 keys, 250,000. That means there's 50K a key out there. That's tough. That is tough. That's tough.
And that we've picked the right people and the right organised crime group who are having a
say about
significant
that.
effect on the population of South Wales when it comes to drug supply.
The haul means the gang are £500,000 out of pocket.
The arrest was a big
wasn't it?
breakthrough for us. We were able to clearly identify where the drugs were coming from and able to seize a large amount of not only controlled drugs but cash, which would be a significant disruption to how that organised crime group would operate.
After 5 months of patient police work, they've hooked their upstream supplier.
So as soon as we'd secured the arrests and the drugs and cash, the surveillance team straight back into action, straight onto the associates, so we could really understand and evidence the panic that was setting in amongst them and look at their communications, because in a moment of panic,
Bro, they was just sitting back watching y'all communicate, just waiting.
make mistakes and you give us opportunities to gather further evidence against you.
And in a hierarchical organisation, they'll want the boss, hopefully, to make those decisions in that moment of panic. So that gives us an opportunity to try and use telephone call data and other things to evidence that, and also potentially identify
You know, it's crazy. One phone was able to spark all of this.
where they might be using storage for controlled
It's a
drugs and
snowball
other
effect.
people in that wider network that they may need to contact.
The upstream supplier will still demand money for the seized 5 kilos of cocaine, meaning the gang have to make up the shortfall fast.
They now need to keep their organisation running. New Individuals need to step up into the roles of arrested persons to make sure that the function of that organised crime group continues, the drugs still hitting the streets, and new ways of receiving from their upstream without the potential losses that they've already seen.
The gang's speed in filling the
Good luck.
shoes of the arrested gang member plays right into detectives' hands.
We quickly identified the member of the organised crime group that stepped up into the role of the arrested person. We're able to concentrate on his daily business, who his customer base was, where he was meeting people, and how he was living his lifestyle.
This is how you can know the upstream, that's what they call it, and the OCG member that they were selling it to, when that money disappeared, they didn't have no cash stash. They didn't have no extra stuff laying down around. So from re-up to distribution, they was essentially moving check by check. That's what we would call it. They were living check by check. So as soon as that one was taken, they couldn't slow down. They couldn't be like, no, the eyes are on us. Let's slow down for a little while. Let's wait until they can't. Because they had to pay the upstream. So the upstream, of course, are going to send them more. Because now you in debt. And you got to work it off. So I'm finna get double, triple. Man, y'all wild.
And his associations to the rest of the organised crime group.
It's over. Everybody's going to jail in that situation. They just wait.
Detectives spend 2 months watching and waiting for one last big opportunity. It arrives when a mid-level gang member is arrested in his vehicle.
So it's October 2018. We've arrested a subject. He's in possession of a large amount of cocaine, a large amount of cash.
The seizure totals 3/4 kilo of cocaine and 15 grand in cash. But that isn't everything they find.
We located on him an EncroChat phone, leading us to show that this team was significant in their abilities to communicate with each other, paying extensive amounts of money for certain phones that allowed for their communications to be hidden from law enforcement agencies.
The heavily encrypted EncroChat phones are the communication of choice for criminals. It explains why police had struggled to track how the top-tier gang members were communicating.
So after nearly 8 months of investigation, felt we were ready with our evidence and we had enough information to arrest the principal members of the organised crime group.
In the build-up to the raids, detectives ensure complete secrecy.
We can't have people knowing what we're planning because the opportunity for our organised crime group to find out and dispose of any evidence could lead to significant problems for our investigation.
We're going to carry out warrants to enter and search at 13 premises, making sure that it's all coordinated so it happens at once so we can get them all into custody at the same time.
It took significant planning, hundreds of officers deployed to make sure that all addresses were suitably searched, arrest plans were put in place, and lots of community engagement to make sure that all of the information that we had and all of the concerns that we'd identified could be addressed once we'd removed these individuals from their homes and put them into a custodial setting.
The 8th of November 2018 is Enforcement Day.
Say goodbye to y'all families. Look, they came with loads of them. Multiple raids at once. Oh,
this is the culmination of 12 months of work by hundreds of officers. Within a few hours, it's all over.
We made 11 arrests. We'd searched 13 properties during the morning and afternoon of the final operation, securing significant amount of evidence at each of those addresses, all linking into the wider conspiracy that we'd been building.
And what's crazy is they probably still missed some. But, you know, they made a dent.
I was relieved at the end that it had all come off successfully.
Police managed to apprehend all the top-tier members.
So, on the day of the operation, we were able to secure the arrest of our lead subject, who we knew was responsible for the oversight of this organised crime group, the boss, effectively. And we're also able to secure the arrest of his main associate, who was responsible for the money laundering in significant sums through his car sales lot.
Officers secure a huge amount of property.
So we're talking expensive cars, we're talking thousands of pounds worth of clothing on somebody who clearly doesn't have the income to support that. We found tens of thousands of pounds worth of cash at different locations. Again, drugs, significant quantities of drugs seized at one address, a kilogram block of cocaine.
What's the sentences? Let me hear this.
Now police have to interview all the gang members.
And from the time that they arrived at the police station, we had 24 hours then to deal with them and work with the CPS to bring those charges against them.
So the suspects, unsurprisingly, offered no comment interviews throughout.
Despite the lack of cooperation, police managed to charge all the key members.
They don't really need your cooperation. They were doing this for a year.
Question remains, do they have enough evidence to put them behind bars?
From the raids, we were able to establish a huge amount of unaccounted for cash and financial capability from this organised crime group.
From the time we made those arrests, we had 6 months until we were in court, and that is often when the really hard work begins to make sure that in court that it's easily understood for a jury.
In May 2019, 1.5 years after the investigation began, the case is heard at Newport Crown Court. After a 6-week trial, the gang are sentenced to over 61 years behind bars.
That still doesn't seem that bad. There's a lot of them. 61 years spread out between 2, 4, 6, 8 people. You know what I'm saying?
Considering the complexities and the scale that they were operating at, and their sort of network which spread across the UK, we were able to achieve a lot and cover a lot of ground to get them those individuals convicted.
It felt brilliant to get the verdicts that we got, to know that the team, having worked so hard for so long, that we could get the right result and that we were doing the right work in the right area, dismantling the right groups and protecting the community.
And that's all that matters, man. Protect the community. TLO, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the